Finally, we have an official King of the Hill video, and it's a topic that Shady Durags hasn't covered yet. This episode is from Season 3, Episode 23 of King of the Hill, titled Wings of Dope. I've really wanted to talk about this episode for a while, because of its message about finding strength within yourself. This episode is mostly known by fans as the Buckley Angel episode. This episode focuses around Buckley Angel and his relationship with Luanne, as he helps her build a future for herself that isn't influenced by anyone else. I consider this to be one of the more strange episodes of King of the Hill, because this is the only episode I can think of that delves into the paranormal. In King of the Hill, death isn't something that you just come back from, but in this episode, we delve into the supernatural, religion, spiritualism, individualism, trauma, along with acceptance and moving on. It's still worth noting that these are all present themes in Wings of Dope, and it is what makes this stand out among fans as being more than your average episode of King of the Hill. With the intro out of the way though, let's get into the video. The episode starts off with Luanne paying for her beauty school. She gives her teacher $300 before finding out she has another fee coming up, and Luanne has another test coming up as well. After this, Luanne's day goes from bad to worse after her classmates make fun of her. And after this, she returns home, and she is met by Hank and his friends eyeing the condition that Con has left Buckley's trampoline in. After Hank rants about the trampoline's condition, Luanne decides to rant to Hank and his friends. She rants to them about how it is unfair that she keeps on receiving test after test at school, and you can tell that Luanne is at her breaking point. Hank is very unsympathetic about what Luanne is going through. I think a big part of this is because Hank started working at Strickland Propane almost straight out of high school, right after only a brief period of working at Jeans West. In Strickland, with some hard work, he was able to rise to the top quickly. Along with Hank never actually going to college, he can't really sympathize with Luanne's dilemma. Luanne storms off after not feeling vindicated from Hank and his friends, but then Con is met by Hank, Dale, Boomhauer, and Bill, offering up to fix his trampoline for free. Con makes the guys an offer, saying that they can fix up his trampoline if they mow his lawn for 2 months, which the gang agrees to, and they all laugh thinking that Con is a sucker, and it's honestly hilarious.
You made your point, Bill. Well, if you guys are here, who's guarding trash cans in alley?
Son, we were just thinking.
We don't want to fix your trampoline.
I do.
Bill.
What? Dale.
You rednecks want to fix my trampoline. But what's in it for me?
Well,
You mow my lawn for 2 months.
all right.
Played him like a damn fiddle.
After this, we get a scene once again showing Luanne's shortcomings as a hairstylist, as she managed to chemically burn off the hair off of a horse's tail. Once Luanne returns home, she sees Hank and his friends putting work into Con's trampoline, and she immediately thinks of Buckley before running into the Hill family home crying. After Hank and his friends wrap up their hangout session, Luanne sees Buckley bouncing on the trampoline and she decides to join him. She comes to the realization that Buckley is an angel, and if you look closely, you can see that Luanne falls on the trampoline much quicker than Buckley does. After Luanne questions if Buckley is real, Buckley tells Luanne something that he would only know about her body. Then the scene immediately cuts to Luanne joining the Hill family in the morning, without her going into the house as she joins the Hills for breakfast. One thing I love about this episode is how ambiguous Buckley's angel really is. We don't know if Luanne is having hallucinations or if she is actually seeing Buckley's angel. And the reason for this is anytime they're on a scene together, we never actually see Luanne end the scene by going into the house. Well, except for one time, but I will get into that later. Hank is happy that Luanne is no longer upset, and he goes to talk to her about how Buckley is a guardian angel watching over her. Sadly though, Hank is just using this as an excuse to try and get Luanne out of the house, and Hank is taking full advantage of it. After this, we once again get a scene where Luanne is being made fun of by her peers. For some reason, they just really don't believe in her, and they get a thrill out of watching her struggle through life. I really love how in this episode, Luanne decides to take the high road and not acknowledge the insults being thrown at her. She decides to just walk away and return to the trampoline she has been having conversations with Buckley on. When she is at the trampoline, she begs Buckley to help her pass her test and to punish the girls who have been bullying her, but Buckley doesn't show up this time. This could be a representation of the fact that Buckley is here to guide Luanne through the changes to improve her life, but he is not here to fix Luanne's life for her.
Buckley's Angel, can you please melt Sharona Johnson's face? Oh, and help me pass my test.
After Luanne leaves the scene disheartened, we see that Bill has left a note for Buckley's Angel. This frustrates Hank, and we get a scene of Hank angry at the fact that people are clinging on to Buckley, as Hank viewed Buckley as an idiot. Hank is at his breaking point, and he threatens his friends to do the trampoline himself, but even Boomhauer won't back him up. After this, we cut to Peggy sitting with Min. Both of them clearly had heard Hank's conversation, so Peggy tries to ask Min if she has had any religious experiences. Peggy in this episode is caught up in her ego, as she can't fathom the fact that Luanne would be having a religious experience and not her, as she once heard Jesus' love in her ear. After this, we cut to Hank hanging out by himself in the alley. Right as he is confused, he looks around and sees Bill and Boomhauer praying alongside Luanne at Buckley's trampoline. Then we get a quick scene poking fun at Peggy for hearing Jesus' love in her ear. And I have to say really quickly, this episode does a good job of establishing a joke, but closing that plot thread quickly within the episode. It really does a good job of making it clear that Luanne is the one having the religious experience. Anyways, Hank goes to confront Luanne about what she is seeing, to try and put some sense of reason into her head. Hank tells Luanne that the thing she is seeing is only temporary, and once she passes her test, if she continues to see Buckley, it isn't going to be an angel anymore, but instead an angel of death, which shocks Luanne. Later that night, Luanne is praying to see Buckley, but he isn't coming to her side. But if you notice, he won't show up when Peggy is around. He only shows up when Luanne is alone and vulnerable. Luanne confesses to Peggy that she is thinking about dropping out of beauty school, but Peggy protests this. Peggy ends up giving Luanne the advice saying that she needs to search deep within herself because Buckley's Angel only gives strength to those who help themselves. It's crazy too because Peggy is right on the money with the theming of the episode, which was something that Hank failed to do in his multiple attempts talking to Luanne. Luanne ends up waking up late for her test, and then Buckley's Angel shows up as she is driving over to her school to let her know that he has a message from God telling her that she is going to fail her test. Luanne isn't happy about this, and she points out the hypocrisy because the way how Buckley words this to Luanne is cruel. This scene does a really good job of highlighting how even as an angel, Buckley is still the same person who made Luanne upset. Luanne pours her heart out to Buckley about her dreams and the path she sees for herself, but Buckley is firm in the fact that Jesus told him that he has a different plan for Luanne. While Luanne is fighting with Buckley, she ends up avoiding the accident by the skin of her teeth. While Luanne is on the side of the road, she ends up being comforted by some girls who are much nicer than the girls at her beauty school. These girls open up Luanne's mind to the possibility of going to community college. As we'll see later on, this ties into the decision that Luanne eventually makes about what Buckley was saying about Jesus having a different purpose for her. After Luanne recovers from her car crash, she makes it to her beauty school test in time and the other girls in class make fun of her. The scene ends with Luanne thinking before we cut to Hank in his garage. When the guys come up to Hank and approach him while he's in the garage, he gets out of the trampoline and he pulls out a letter he had written clearly himself, which swiftly shuts down the plot of the guys hoping that they could get something out of Buckley's Angel. Bill and Dale point out that the letter isn't written in Buckley's handwriting, which frustrates Hank, so he sprays them down with water, quickly ending this side plot. This is kind of like the side plot earlier, the Jesus' love Peggy heard in her ear. It's just quickly a joke that they decide to shut down within the episode, and I appreciate it for doing that. This side plot does wrap up a little quickly, but this is a Luanne-focused episode, and Hank's friends are really just added for comedic purposes. When Luanne gets home from her beauty test, we get one of my favorite Luanne scenes across the entire series. Luanne comes home ecstatic from her beauty test, and initially Peggy thinks that Luanne aced her exam, but Luanne ends up expressing to Peggy that she dropped out of beauty school and got her tuition refund along with enrolling in community college. This was really smart of Luanne, because she did get a refund and she came to the realization that beauty school wasn't for her. I love how when Luanne breaks this news to the Hill family, they're all super excited for her. Hank is upset at first when he realizes that he's not going to get his den back anytime soon, but he makes a sensible decision and realizes that it's for the better, as it's going to be providing Luanne a future by allowing her to stay with him so that she can make her way through community college. After this, we get a final goodbye between Luanne and Buckley. Luanne tells Buckley to thank Jesus for her, and Buckley asks for one last kiss, but Luanne tells him that that part of their life is over, showing that she is officially ready to move on from Buckley. After Luanne goes inside, we see Buckley finally has a halo, and I would assume that this allows him to move on properly to the afterlife. So, now it's time for my final thoughts on the episode. I overall really love this episode of King of the Hill. Whether Buckley's angel is supposed to be an actual angel, or a metaphor for Luanne moving on and finding strength within herself, I think it doesn't really matter. The main takeaway is that Luanne's path that she was on wasn't going to make her happy, and she found the strength within herself to build a better future. A huge part of Luanne's character arc is going from relying on the Hill family to being self-reliant, and I feel like this is the episode that really put that in motion.
Now just stop it! Stop telling me what to do! I am a proud, ignorant woman, and no one is going to change that!
I feel like this episode did a really good job of taking Buckley from an almost forgettable side character that died to a lovable tragedy in Luanne's life. And my final thing that I love about this episode is that there isn't really any episode like this in King of the Hill that really just delves into the supernatural. For the most part, King of the Hill is a really grounded show, so an episode like this really stands out, and I can't help but love it. Anyways, if you guys like the video, please give it a like, as it does help the algorithm, because my long-form videos don't seem to be suggested to my audience for some reason. But if you would like to secure seeing videos like this right as they release, please consider hitting that notification bell. And finally, to ask me questions directly, please consider joining my Discord or following me on Twitch. And with all that being said, you guys all take care. Have a good one.